Whether you're a Class 5 rafter or just looking for a couple of laughs, these two have you covered. Welcome to Aaron and Zach's Better Than Mediocre Rafting Show.
Well, it's time for our big Christmas spectacular. We have a lot to do on the show today. Before we get started, I want to tell everybody a few things. If you're listening to this on River Talk Podcast, you're hearing the audio only, please watch the video version. But if you want to hear only the audio, I don't know if you're mowing your lawn or something, you can find us on rivertalkpodcast.com. This is a video show. We will be showing videos, and watching this, I think, helps. Please subscribe. Aaron, we're almost at 10,000 subscribers.
I feel like we've been almost at 10,000 subscribers for a while, like since we started the show, Zach.
It's true. It's true. But if you guys could subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. We also have members. Sometimes we do member-only shows, and it helps support the show so we can spend money on the show, make it better. We might get Aaron a light here someday with some of the big bucks we're bringing in, so we can see.
Yeah, well, yeah. I am on assignment. What am I traveling? Where? Yeah,
you're on assignment. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, I'm on assignment, so I'm not at my normal location today.
Okay. Well, is that a fake background behind you? Did you are you somewhere else and you put that fake background behind you?
That's to pretend I'm going someplace. Yeah.
Okay. No. Yeah. Well, first thing I want to do, Aaron, is start with a trivia question.
All right.
We haven't done trivia in a while, and the winners can win this cool dry bag from Moravia.
Why don't you make yourself bigger so we can see you, so you can see how cool that dry bag is? Okay. It looks like it has a river on it or something.
It has a river on it. I think it's the Grand Canyon. It's from Cascade and Kind Design. I won it at a conference, and I'm not going to use it, so I thought I would share it with somebody who could put it to good use. So you can win that. You can also win this pretend autograph photo of Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. Nobody's chosen that yet. Or The Rivers of Oregon by Tim Palmer. So those are your choices.
So you're regifting, Zach. That's what's going on here, right? In honor of Christmas, you're regifting before Christmas even starts.
This? Yeah.
It's a regift.
Well, I can just sit here and collect dust or something.
No, I have no problems with regifting. I'm just calling it for what it is. I love regifting.
This is not regifting. I bought the frame. I bought the fake photo. I did this myself. This is not regifting. This is special.
Wasn't that a gift for yourself?
Oh, hold on. Let me turn the audio down. So,
whoa, that's really loud.
The trivia question is, what river is this? And you can't guess, Aaron, because you might know.
Oh, I know what river this is.
Okay, well.
I mean, I think everyone knows what river this is.
They don't know. Not everybody knows. So look at that nice little surf.
Who's surfing in there? Is that Dougie?
It's not Dougie. Dougie's actually rowing. I'm holding a camera.
Oh, there's Dougie rowing. Okay.
Yeah, so back here, I saw them surfing while Dougie was rowing, so I pulled my iPhone out, and then he was like, "Uh-oh, I better."
Did Johnny SR get it right?
Out. Johnny SR got it right. So Johnny SR, you can win a prize.
I mean, I feel like you really shouldn't win with that thing. Win, really? Come on, Zach. I mean,
hey, it's better than the trivia questions that we did before. People just Googled the answer.
Oh, that's a good point. That is a good point.
I've been sitting on this footage. It's been on my desktop for 6 months.
Can anyone name the rapid?
Can you name the rapid, Aaron?
No, I can't.
Well, then why?
Because I thought you could name it, and I'm curious someone else could name it.
Well, the thing about this rapid is it's the run out of a rapid that I have a name for, but it's not a named rapid.
Do you know these people? Were they part of your group?
They were people we met at Put In. We kind of knew them.
That's a nice serve. That's a good serve.
It was solid. They were in there for a while. I was going to use this footage for our online rowing school to demonstrate bad serves. And I might still use it. It's been sitting on my desktop for a while.
How's that a bad serve?
Hey, welcome, Steve. Steve's joining us today.
I would not have known that was the Wind River. I don't know the name of the rapid. Sorry, not my.
You know the guy rowing the boat there, though. You know Doug Weedwald.
The Fresh. Well, Look at the Fresh.
I do.
Have Steve and Doug been on a show together yet?
I think so.
Has Steve seen Doug in person since that time he left his bike?
No.
Yeah, he has.
We still have some making up to do.
That was 20 years ago.
At least.
You've seen Dougie since then. Well, Dougie's kayaked on the tee or hung out. You've seen him since then.
I don't know. I don't think so.
But it's the Wind River. We did our trivia question. Steve, I'm not sure when you jumped on. I didn't see you were there, so I had to add you in.
No, I did, and I saw the prizes, and I'm looking forward to entering the next trivia question.
Good. Willie Bum Bum was there that day, but this wasn't Willie in the boat. It was Willie, if I remember right, this is your friends that came with us that day. Willie was in a different boat. But yeah, that was about a year ago. Next, okay, so we have a lot to do before we get started. Next, Johnny SR sent Aaron and I gifts. Aaron, did you get your gift?
Well, I haven't been home.
Okay.
He may have sent to Lindsay's work too.
John, that might be a raft. Yeah, well, anyway, he asked us to open them up, so I refrigerated it and opened it up. And there's a nice letter. And it's a beer. Whoa, check this out. I gotta make this big. You know,
man, I wish I was at home right now.
Yeah, so he made us koozies. Hold on.
What?
Please tell me what is a guide's guide? That's what it says on it. Please tell me.
That's perfect. That's it. Next time Zach goes rafting, he can keep his beer cold while he's rowing down the river. Is that what that's for, Johnny?
I don't generally drink when I'm on the river.
That is amazing.
I didn't think it was a beer because it was so light. I'm like, that's like candy or something. It's a beer, and it looks like a really good one. I don't normally drink on the show because I did once, and it went really bad.
Is that real beer or is it a near beer?
It's Athletic Brewing Company, which I think is beer that doesn't have gluten in it. Read the letter. Should I read the letter out loud? Okay. I have to read the whole letter.
Oh, wow.
This might take a minute.
Rehearsed.
It's a long letter. First, I will start off by saying I love the show. The conversation and banter back and forth is great, and your garage has provided excellent references to pursue my whitewater journey. I would like to share with you both the holiday season my favorite brew to be enjoyed both on and off the river, while keeping this finely crafted brew comfortably enclosed in your personalized koozie. Oh, is Aaron's different? Please crack it open and embrace the tantalizing bouquet. I guess I'll do that. Now take your first sip of your new craft brew to enjoy it anytime, anywhere. What do you think? I'm reading what he says. It's actually interesting. It doesn't taste like beer.
I think it's non-alcoholic, Zach.
It tastes like a cross between beer and kombucha. It says, please feel free to elaborate on what you've just experienced. Now, after a brief description of the audience of your new favorite brew, flip over this page. I'm now a little bit worried. Zach, you've just experienced a world in which you avoided and likely did not know existed, the world of non-alcoholic beer. Oh, okay. I understand your disdain for such a blasphemous concept. I once scoffed at the mere mention of such filth myself, but hopefully you've been enlightened to the burgeoning arena of what is now possible in the once ostracized red-headed stepchild of brewing non-alcoholic beer. I'm not against non-alcoholic beer. Have I said that in the show before?
No, but it's cool. Now you can drink on the river and not feel bad about it. You can drink beer. Yeah, I've had like 6 beers today.
That's true. That's a good point.
Those koozies should be
trivia
prizes
for sale.
Oh my god, those koozies are amazing.
Yeah,
that is. I'm so excited. I hope I got one too, Johnny. We're gonna get home. I'll have to dig around and figure out where that.
Aaron, if I remember right, you don't drink, but you can drink this.
Yeah, I think that's why. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Johnny. I really appreciate it. Aaron's gonna appreciate it. What about Steve?
It's all right. I'm gonna win one. I want to win one of those koozies.
You know, I'm trying to drink less. And so I found that drinking the sparkly waters in the river helps you because it's such a habit to get to camp and want a beer or something. I think it's the carbonation and the act of opening the drink more than it is actually wanting the beer. So I've been drinking the sparkly waters, but this is a good alternative. So
yeah, I'll say that the sparkly waters help, and this would be its equivalent. I've worked trips with people who. Some people get uncomfortable when you're not drinking with them in the evening, when you're not having beer, and they feel uncomfortable. And I found if I have a sparkly water or even a non-alcoholic beer, they don't care then. But it's weird if you're just drinking water out of your water bottle, they get all weird about it, and like kind of get all. And it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but for some reason it bothers them. So that's half the reason I bring sparkly water.
It bothers people that you don't drink.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Zach. This gets into a deep conversation, but I think there's multiple reasons. think there's a lot of, I mean, there's a fair number of people who have problems with it, and you not drinking.
Really?
Oh yeah, I think that's part of it for sure.
Is it guides too? Is it guides or?
Oh yeah, it's guides for sure. Guides. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, alcoholism is a problem everywhere. So it's not just a problem on the river, but I think we just see it more because we work and live with the people, and you notice it more. But I mean, I know a lot of people are alcoholics and recovering alcoholics are guides. You know, I know a couple were. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot.
The interesting thing to me is that, like, for some reason, like, people I'm sure drink a lot, but they usually drink in the evenings. When people boat, they somehow think it's okay to pop open a beer at noon. Like, that's a normal thing. Or maybe it's because they're on vacation. But it's amazing. Or while that's what I'm saying, noon. You know, a lot of private boaters drink like all day. And guides, like, where can you be at work and have a beer at 3 o'clock? Or like when you get to camp, like you get to camp, pop open a beer. Where at the job can you pop open a beer midway through?
Working as a bartender?
Can you?
I don't know. Don't they take shots with people and stuff like that?
No, you're right. There are very few jobs where drinking is accepted on the job.
On the job.
Yeah. Anyways, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that, Johnny. I'm excited to try mine out.
Yeah. It's definitely appreciated. It definitely makes it feel very special and cool. So thank you. Let Aaron know what you want. If you want the dry bag, the Johnny Utah thing, or the Rivers of Oregon.
Yeah, Johnny SR. You could have Johnny Utah.
You get Johnny Utah. So we have a big show today. Lots to do. We're going to start, if this is okay, with a video, and start with a little video review. We're going to get into a topic, and we have a special segment we're gonna talk about a little bit today. But I want to start with this rescue video from the Green Race.
What's going on? Right? Is there someone stuck in the hole?
There's somebody pinned in a kayak in the hole.
Oh.
Or not, maybe not that hole, a hole. I think we'll see here in a second.
Got a lot of ropes.
There it is.
Okay.
Ooh. That doesn't look good, but at least his head's out.
And this is a rapid called Go Left. And it's actually called Go Left or Die. Wait, Go Left. No, Go Left and Die. Go Left. I get it confused. I think it's called Go Left and Die. But all the cool people go left. Like, there's a really hard move on the left, where there's a right line that's a little easier, where they're sending these other kayakers.
There was a lot going on here.
Yeah. So I thought maybe we talk about like some good things and some bad things. If you guys notice.
If you're the guy in the water with the lime green hat, would you want to have a rescue vest for this situation? By the way he's clipped in, how would you feel about that?
I'd want it, yeah. This is not a place you want to swim. Like, this rapid is not a place you'd want to be in the water. So my two takeaways were, one, I like how they have an upstream spotter. They need that, right? If there wasn't somebody upstream, all these kayaks, this is during a race, would go right into them. So having somebody up there that's like, hey, you got to go right here. Even though people may see it, I think having that is huge. And my biggest takeaway is how important it is to be nimble and athletic in terms of a rescue. Like, these are pretty physically fit people. Like, if you weren't flexible or nimble or strong, this rescue would look a lot different. Look at the audience too. It's a pretty big rapid. So during the Green Race, there's big audiences that go down and hike down and watch it. We got a new member, Sword Digger. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Have you paddled this, haven't you, Zach?
Yeah. This rapid,
the chute that he's kind of looks like he's about to go down the right side of that rock. How bad is that?
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. We went right. Where they sent the other kayakers. We didn't take this line. It was called. It's funny that they call it go left and die, I think. But they were like, is it go left and die or go left or die? We can't remember. They were joking with us. I'm like, just tell us where to go. Like, yeah, go right. Go right's easier. But for the race, the fastest line is left.
Yeah.
You go through this first drop.
Oh, nice. Can you play that again?
Yeah.
See how they did that.
So they stabilized the boat.
Yeah.
Got him a rope.
That was awesome. Oh, that was great.
They had a rope on him and a rope on the rescue guy, the red life jacket guy, and yanked him out. Wow.
And I don't think they gave him a rope. It's not like they didn't tie him to the rope, but they gave him a rope.
Holding it?
He was holding it? Or maybe he wasn't.
Here, this almost gets ugly.
Oh, dude, this is not good.
I would have just gone over backwards. I'm surprised he's able to turn around here.
Got a little help.
It's a pretty long boat.
Yeah, I mean, they choose us fast. And the kayak came off and they pulled it upstream. I think the upstream rope is kind of nice to have because if the kayak had got down, it might have pinned itself in there.
Yeah. Wow.
That was intense.
Yep. All right, you guys want to watch one more and then we'll get to one more video. I've been getting a lot of Grand Canyon things. This beer is very fruity.
One person does not have the angle they want to have.
Oof.
Where are they? Is this all horn?
Yeah, I think so.
And that person tried to push it.
Oh.
Is that one
they got spun?
Bank?
There's a rock. There's another boat there. They went up on another raft.
So those people just fell out of the first one. We saw that. They had pins and clips. They'd stayed in the boat.
Did they?
I think that there's that boat downstream with the people that fell out. It's just a boat by itself. And then there's a boat upside down in an eddy.
I think we're going to be seeing more of this with the low water.
You think this is low water?
Yeah, it's 2022, so it's lower water. And they're going right to left means they didn't feel like the middle chute was open. And lower water under 10,000, that's more common. I'm guessing it was under 10,000. Ugh, could you imagine flipping back over in that eddy? Yeah. This is a spot where I'd flip into the deep water, not flip it towards shore.
Because of the sticks?
It's just messy. I flipped on this beach actually once.
You
flipped a boat back over. Marie Sears, she actually had a better line than I did, but her boat flipped.
It's not surprising. That was pretty easy.
Yeah.
But what is that, 10 people pulling? And 2 ropes?
Yeah.
Looks like 3 ropes.
And it just falls down the side. I mean, it works well, but there's a lot of people pulling. And yeah. I wish we'd done it in the eddy.
Steve Aaron and I had this debate a lot whether to just do it on the shore like this or do it just mid current.
I don't say mid current. I'm not saying mid current. I just say have a line to shore, push the boat off into the eddy into some deeper water, and just flip it over with like 6 or 8 people on it. I think it's safer. I think this is way more full, and they did a really nice job. But it's more like put a hole in the boat. What's going on there? Is someone hurt?
That's what it looks like.
Oh,
Did get hurt.
Whoa! Wow.
So did somebody get hurt? You think flipping it back over? I guess
can you turn down the music, Zach?
I like the music.
It's sweet music, but
I thought they'd explain something.
Well, it looked like an ankle
Yeah.
to me, right? Like,
did they get hurt? Did they get hurt flipping the boat back over, or did they get hurt from swimming?
looked to me like it was during the.
We didn't see anything about this until after the boat.
That's why the audio might have helped. Let me see if the audio has some details other than just cool music.
I don't think anyone got touched by the boat. That log really helped them too. It's just music.
Yeah, they're all celebrating. It probably was a swimmer that got hurt. But look, they're on the shore on that same bank. Like the person that they're evacuating right there. See, there's all that wood on bank. They're hurt there. They're not hurt in the water.
Yeah, the story they're telling here is kind of chopped up a little bit. It's hard to.
Yeah. But I think that says something about maybe flipping in the current.
Go back to that stretcher shot.
The metal stretcher.
Are they on a table? I'm just curious as to what they had for.
You're required to have a stretcher, I believe, on trips down there. Commercial offers, you're supposed to have one.
That's just.
And so they might be using.
That's a table. That's a whatever backboard.
I mean, I don't think he's backboarded. They're just. I mean, he just can't walk. Maybe. I don't know. It'd be nice to have more details about this.
He doesn't look that hurt.
Yeah, I mean, he's like
giving a shock and
his tongue sticking out. His friends are all smiling.
Yeah, but they evacuated him with a helicopter. And there's a guy there that only has one leg.
Right. Right.
One of those carriers.
Yeah.
Wow. A lot going on.
Oh, Zach, the music, please.
God, you're so easily irritated. But I think it's possible he got hurt when they were reflipping it. And that says something to the danger of like pulling on uneven rocks. And, you know, there's always adrenaline flowing when you're flipping things back over. So people do things maybe they shouldn't. It's hard to know where he got hurt. Oh, so it's a knee. They put a nice little knee brace on.
Or maybe just walking down the beach, walking down shore. That's the classic, right? We've all seen
beautiful
that.
Sunset.
Yeah, nice evening.
A couple comments. Flip in the deep water. Yeah. I've been taught deep water reflip. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, it works great.
Yeah. Instead of on the shore, I guess.
Takes less people. Yeah, it's way less messy in general.
Yeah. So, Steve, before we get into one of our topics, I thought we introduced your new segment.
Let's go back.
Okay.
Because the entry angles, the downstream angles.
Oh, yeah.
Are sort of the crux of this whole thing. That evacuation occurred
because people couldn't do a downstream ferry.
Because
we don't know what happened, but we do know if everyone had done a good downstream ferry there,
this one's solid, right?
That one's okay.
To start,
I'd be farther over. I'd be farther left, river left at this point, like closer to that rock. Like they're late. In my
mind. Not that bad.
But of all the angles and runs I saw, this moment of this run was sort of the best example. From here, it goes downhill, as I recall. Like this person loses their angle and starts rolling.
Is this the first one that goes? Is this the first one, or is this the one that goes backwards?
I think this was the first one.
This is the first one. Here's the beginning of the video. The video starts here. So kayakers,
they still lose their angle, as I recall.
See, they're low, but it's okay. But they're low.
This one looks fine to me.
No, because you can flip off this thing right there. It just didn't. Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, that was
fine.
You can flip off of that. You can flip off. You want to be farther over, and then this person was a little farther to the right, river right, and then the next one's probably farther over.
So they did fine. Then this guy's just going like he has no ferry angle. Is that the whole point?
Yeah, I think they lost it. I'm guessing they lost it. We didn't get to see him from the top, but I'm guessing they got spun backwards. I feel like more times people, when they do downstream ferry, end up going downstream too much versus going sideways too much.
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
why that is. I don't understand that because I just pull harder with your downstream more than your upstream more. But people don't seem to do that. Well, here they're all right-handed. They're all right-handed, so they're just pulling harder with the right.
I mean, Aaron, I think you're just super experienced.
No, but I mean, when people err, they err in turning it downstream instead of err in turning it back upstream. Most of the time, what I've seen. People blow a downstream ferry. They end up going straight downstream.
I agree with Aaron. That's what I've seen most of the time.
Yeah, so I just see that more often. I'm not saying anything about. I just see like when people blow it, they blow it that way more than the other way.
You're right, but I think it's because it's that left oar is harder to pull on, and so
the
the
downstream oar is harder to pull.
Downstream oar, like you have to stop with your right and just turn the boat. If you're downstream ferrying, you keep an even strokes, it's going to want to turn it down. You have to really pull harder on your left.
Yeah, your left oar, your downstream oar is in the eddy water behind your boat. Your upstream oar is catching the current upstream of you, maybe. I don't know.
So I think that what happens is people don't realize to keep their angle, they have to pull harder on their oar that is.
The other thing, over
there.
On the downstream,
that just comes from experience.
On the downstream oar,
the downstream oar, So that just comes from experience. So like Aaron Cavagnolo and Steve Welch, like River Gods, you guys have done it a million times. Of course, that's how you keep your angle. But when
we're not talking trash, Zach, we're not talking trash. We're just saying we see the error happen that side more than the other side. It's not about us. It's not, Zach, your ego is all about how badass you are. So you assume that's what we're talking about. And we're not. We're very humble, Steve and I. We're just saying when we see it messed up, it's messed up more often that way than the other way.
Here's what I think needs to also be mentioned is this is not the time to learn how to do a downstream ferry angle.
No.
Yes.
Right? Like you've got to learn how to do downstream ferry angle on a class 2 rapid when you're just trying to catch some dinky eddy and get used to rowing, looking over your shoulder, feeling what those different oars are going to do in different current, and then just slowly work your way up the ramp until you're in a situation like this where that downstream ferry angle and holding that angle are critical to surviving. And this isn't the place to learn. And I think because the Grand Canyon is in such a different scale that most of us don't have a time to practice that kind of a high water volume type situation where
Steve, how many days of practicing downstream ferries do you think you would need before you'd be ready for that if you boated? Like 7 days? Because this is like day 7 of the trip, man. You have a whole week to practice them up until here.
But they may not have been practicing them.
Or
they may not have been practicing them on the Middle Fork of the Salmon or the Rogue or some other river before they went to the Grand Canyon. I think that happens a lot.
But not everybody gets to just do the Middle Fork a bunch. Like I think that's the issue. People don't have access to the Middle Fork all the time or the Rogue.
You're not downstream ferrying on the Middle Fork. You're just tracking your boat down. You can, but you don't need to. I guess I agree with you, Steve, but my point is you had a week to get down to that rapid. You knew the flows you're going to run through, but you knew that's going to be a hard move. Everyone knows that's going to be a hard move. All the hard moves down there would be like, you have a week to practice. Practice it in rapids where it's easy to practice it. Like, oh, hey, I'm going to practice downstream ferrying in this rapid. I'm going to practice downstream ferrying in this rapid. Even though I don't need it, I'm going to downstream ferry this.
And I'm not saying that people didn't practice. They might have and still had that happen. That we all have.
Yeah, I'm guessing
lose our ferry angles. That happens. And that's a hard rapid, right? I mean, that's a hard ferry angle to hold. For 5 strokes, maybe 3 strokes, that's it. I mean, it's one move from right to left. You're not doing you're not holding that ferry angle for a long, long time.
No, you got to get 3 or 4 strokes in. And that's the thing. You don't even have to hold it for that long. You just have to be close to the rock, 3 or 4 strokes.
If you do it absolutely perfectly, and you have everything perfect in your Aaron Cavagnolo, it's 3 strokes. Other people, it takes more to get the right angle.
Well,
they're going to be off in position a little bit, then be off in angle a bit. So it's going to be more.
Well, you don't have much space.
Aaron's going to take 3 of those before he gets into the V, and then
it takes 3 or 4 strokes to get your momentum going.
Yeah.
And then at that point, if you are in the right spot, it'll do the rest for you. And if you're not, if you're too far out, you're going to have a hard time on that one. I mean, that's where everyone gets in trouble. They think, oh, I need to get a bunch of power and a bunch of momentum going. So I'm going to do like 40 strokes above instead of be like, dude, just be right next to that rock. Even if you get 2 strokes, you're really close to the rock.
If you're strong, it's a couple.
Well, I'm going to say even if you're weak, you're better off being close and get 2 strokes and then starting way away and trying to like power in there.
But I think the point, Steve, you're making, I think is a good one, is like you have to practice this move. You can't practice this move at this moment. And the point Aaron's making is you had a week to practice it on the river.
Yep.
Steve is like, practice it when you're at home. And I think like the private trip I just did, nobody was practicing downstream ferries. And once we got to House Rock, or was it House of Rocks, that was a big downstream ferry move too. several people were like, this is the first time, let me watch you do it. I've never seen it done. Like, all right, cool, I'll do it. And they're like, oh, they try to copy it there, but nobody practiced it after that. On the trip that I was on, it's not like people don't know to practice it or know how to practice it. So I think practicing it before the trip is important, but the hard thing is where. Like, not everybody has access to great whitewater to practice it.
And so practicing on the trip is also helpful. I think that's it, because then you've got the boat, it weighs the same. It's because then it's a totally different scene when you have a light boat. It's way easier to correct. When that bigger, heavier boat, it starts to get up. Practice rowing backwards. I think, was it Eric Hertz? He made his son row the whole Tuolumne backwards. And he was like, yeah, my dad is such a punk. He was all mad at his dad. But literally, he's like, it's actually kind of helpful because I kind of learned how to row backwards. And so I think that was interesting. You know, Eric is, I feel like Eric is kind of outside of everyone else in terms of norms, but I think there's something to say for this. Like, just try to row a whole river backwards. Doesn't matter what river, just try to row backwards. I think that's hard and it's tiring, and your neck's going to be sore at the end, but it's going to make you better. So
yeah, and it's going to be helpful when you have to do it.
Yeah,
you're going to be glad you did do it.
Yeah.
Mike Fred's asking, what's downstream ferrying?
That's a great question. Yeah.
This is a really good question right now. Can you demonstrate it, Zach?
That's funny. I can.
You spin your whiteboard?
I actually have a video up here that I used for this the other day.
Oh my gosh, look at that whiteboard.
I was just doing this the other day. So this rapid is upset. I drew upset on the board. And so, like, if there's big laterals you have to break through, you take your oar boat, let's say you're forwards going down, you spin the boat at a 45-degree angle so that you're hitting these laterals about 90 degrees, and you pull through the laterals to make a move to get to the right.
That's a 45-degree angle, Zach?
It was.
That is. And what happens is a lot of times you get through the laterals, and then you turn and you just keep pulling to the shore.
45 degrees from downstream. Oh, okay. 45 degrees from downstream.
Yeah. You're basically, these laterals are they're about 45 degrees to the current. I mean, so you want to hit these straight, you want to pierce through them by pulling through them, by pulling down. And people, you can push through them, but you don't have the strength to do it always. And so it's not as powerful pushing. The problem is if you try to ferry over, the lateral will shove you back to the middle. So you go ferry. It kind of, because you're parallel to these laterals, they kind of send you to the middle.
And I'll say so we talk downstream ferry. Going forward is also, and pushing forward is a downstream ferry. But when we say downstream ferry, in general, when we're talking downstream ferry, we're talking about pulling backwards, looking over your shoulders, which is confusing and it's not great when actually reflect. That's what we do. So
I think, my take on it. So Steve said practice before you go. Aaron said practice while you're there before you get there.
Yeah, and I'm going to go see it. Practice before.
Yeah,
but also
part of the problem
with the boats you're running. Yeah.
Is there's just a culture of people learning to row and people rowing that's like push. And so like everybody's like, you got to push this, you got to push that. And when people learn, they learn one way of doing things, or maybe pulling on a ferry. The downstream ferry isn't taught when people are learning. And so I feel like when people are learning, they should recognize there's different techniques: pushing, pulling on a back ferry, and downstream ferrying. And they're different tools that they should be practiced if you want to improve as you get better.
And it looked like one of those rafts at Horn Creek was trying to push left, the third one maybe, and once you lose that angle, you're.
Well, yeah, I would pushing left.
Did try to push?
I don't know. I would not. That's not recommended. I don't know anyone who's doing that one.
Just go back 10 seconds on that blue raft. I think it looks like that person was pushing.
It's kind of hard to tell what's going on.
The next one, watch this. No, maybe
is that a different? I can't tell which route that is.
That's a blue raft there. They're backwards. They're backwards. Yeah, and then they turned around. So I think they were. Oh, maybe no. You're right. Maybe they're. Who knows? So
to wrap this little piece up, I would say like, if people want to get better, I think if you want to stay on like class 2 and 3 and not the Grand Canyon.
Like the Grand Canyon.
Steve, he thinks the Grand Canyon's class 3.
I know.
And pretty much everyone agrees with me. Everyone agrees with me on the show. Zach's the only one who wants to. Zach wants to call it class 4, and no one agreed with him. He asked.
Hey, Aaron, here's the problem.
Zero people agreed with him.
This is the problem. People that don't know, that are not experienced downstream ferrying, go do the Grand Canyon.
People who don't know how to raft think it's hard.
People that don't know how to raft think it's hard. Yeah, but there's people that are guides out there that are experienced river guides that never learned a downstream ferry, who go do the Grand Canyon and get kind of beat up.
That's all.
And that's why I'm going to call it class 4.
And rowing are 2 different skills.
That's what I'm going to call it class 4, because it requires some special, like,
it's
some of the
class
rapids
4 for paddle captains.
We don't need to
but not for rowers.
We don't need to argue about this anymore. Yeah, Sean, I'm agreed. Yep. Do both. Yep. Like practice,
totally
understand
Sean,
it,
totally. Practice
at home, and on the river when it's bigger and you're in a big boat, just keep doing it. I think it would be amazing. A large loaded raft.
Yep.
Yeah, that's another thing that you'd have to practice.
Yep. Stronger pulling back, I think. Yep. The big water downstream ferry is not intuitive.
Yep.
I think it's.
I mean, well, I agree. Only in particular, not. I would vary.
I used it like on 8 rapids. I used it like 8 or so times.
And I'm gonna say this.
In your life?
Used it on the Tuolumne.
No, on the Grand Canyon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or like it's like high water Tuolumne. I use it. Blossom Bar. It's a downstream ferry. It's Cherry Creek, like heading in a mushroom.
We use it everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but even on low water Tuolumne, I feel like there's places where we'll use it. We'll downstream ferry into eddies and then spin around stuff. You do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think once you have that tool in your toolbox, you're a much better boater. You don't know, like, you think you're really good if you just know like how to push rapids and like fit and do back ferries. You're like, oh, I'm Mr. Awesome Boater. But until that tool, once you have it, is really opens things up.
So Zach, have you seen if someone's good at downstream ferrying, they're class 4 boater?
I mean, I would almost say that. I mean, Aaron, I'd almost say that, because if you're good at it, if you're good at downstream ferry, if you're good at it, you develop the skill that's hard to develop. If you're somebody's
and
good
you
at
could say
downstream
that very
ferry,
few class 3 boaters are good at downstream ferry angles.
That's fair.
Like, it is where you start to separate.
I don't think it's that hard to learn, though. I think you just have to practice it some. Just people have never practiced it, and they haven't done it. Like, you think how much time you spend pushing forward downstream? I don't think it's that hard of a skill.
No, it's not. And when you teach someone and they
Once you
get
get
it and they do it,
yeah.
it is really, really fun. I mean, it's something you want to do again and again, because it is a very fun thing to do when you're just playing around when it's not a high pressure situation. I mean, it's a fun way to catch an eddy.
Okay. You guys want to move on?
Yeah, totally. Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah,
we
going right at upset.
Well, we have a few more videos to watch, and we have a topic to cover, which is pirate boating. But before we do, we got to talk about Steve's going to do a new segment in the show.
Oh, yeah. What's the segment called?
It's called the mental angle.
The mental angle.
Mental angle, as opposed to the ferry angle. Downstream mental angle. We're just gonna tease it this week,
right.
And maybe launch it in 2023.
2023. Oh yeah, that's not that far away.
Coming up. But if there's interest, and I don't know how to measure interest, emails or comments.
Have people comment right now if you're interested.
On
exploring some of the.
What's that?
Just email. If you have interest, email Aaron at aaron@reversenotions.com.
Okay, or comment on some of the trip leadership, mental parts of the game, what to do if this happens, what to do that happens, how to balance some of the personal situations that we might encounter on a river. The subtitle of this segment is, it's not just about the raft. So a good river trip has a lot of components, good gear, good rafts, good river, good water, all those things, but managing the personnel and the interpersonal things might be something that we want to explore.
Yeah, I think that's fun. That sounds great. Is
So
that what we're doing today with
a scenario that you might want to, for the three of us to talk about situations we've encountered where we maybe didn't handle it as well as we wanted to, or where someone else handled it and it worked really well. Throw those at us. If it's what you do in those situations or what you can do to help someone else in those situations, we're looking for those types of ideas. Is that what you wanted, Zach? Do you think?
Yeah, but I got to tell you, I created just to try it on. I created a quick intro for your segment.
Okay.
Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
I want to. When you say yes, you agree to see this. I created this. This is the intro.
Yeah, I'm ready.
This is a draft. This isn't the final version, but this is just a draft. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
It's time for the mental angle featuring Steve Welch. In this segment, Steve helps us approach the mental game of guiding, trip leading, and running whitewater. Let's all give Steve a big welcome.
I like it. I really like it. That's beautiful. That last picture with the person falling out of the boat is perfect. Yeah, there are a lot of those out there. I'm sure it wasn't hard to find that one. Yeah.
Well, I only have those are the only photos of you that I have.
That's our new segment. We will try and you could have used this as my avatar.
Oh yeah, I said that to. I need a photo of that. Or we could just have a video of that bobbling. Where'd you get that?
That is the mental game. Yes or no? Yeah, we'll throw out some different scenarios, situations we've encountered, things that worked, things that didn't work, and maybe ways to sort of walk through those things.
Cool.
Let's back up here. There is a Steve Welch bobblehead?
Yeah, where do we get
those?
those?
Whatever mental angle, there's a Steve Welch bobblehead.
There it is.
Are they for sale?
There's two of them in existence. A retirement gift from Mikey Johnson and Nolan Verga, for those of you who are familiar with Arda guides.
That is amazing. That's
one of the favorite things I have. I will be honest. It's pretty cool. Nolan has the other one.
Oh, that is awesome. That is really, really cool.
Yeah, that was my retirement gift when I stepped down from Arda. So that was fun. That's fun.
Yeah, that is amazing.
I'll send you a copy. Maybe you can add that into that intro.
If I had some video of it bobbling.
That's better than some of those other pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, like with in the bottom corner when you have the title on there, in the bottom corner have the bobblehead moving. Yeah.
We'll have to ask Nolan where we get some of those. You know, Nolan's watched the show before, but it was during work hours, so we give him a hard time about maybe he should be at work instead of watching our silly show.
Yeah.
So I think we talked him out of watching it.
Nolan's work hours is an oxymoron. All right, let's talk about pirate trips.
Yeah.
Arr!
So Aaron, this was your idea for a topic, and I think we should start by defining pirate trips.
Well, I think that is a huge part of it for sure, is defining pirate trips. Yeah, I think because I think that's a great place to start. Great point. So, am I supposed to talk about it, or
yeah, this is your topic, Aaron?
Oh man.
Well, you want to come up with a topic, and then I'm going to talk about it? I didn't know what to prep for your topic.
No, I'm pretty prepped. I just didn't. I guess I'm still in the bobblehead thing. It's give me a minute to like recover from that. I didn't know that was even possible. I mean, geez, they must have gone to a lot of work to get that done. Yeah. So start with pirate trips. Well, what do you guys think of as a pirate trip? Let's start with that, and then I'll tell you guys how you guys are wrong. So,
Aaron, this is the laziest topic I've ever seen.
Okay.
No, I'll do your job for you.
Otherwise I could be talking for a long time. So I think you guys start off talking about some of the things you think, and then I'll fill in the gaps.
This is lazy, Aaron. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah. Okay.
So a pirate trip is when you get a non-commercial permit, a private permit.
Yeah.
and you don't follow the rules of a private permit in terms of who pays. Either you pay people to be there to help, or it's not even cost shared. Like the idea of a private trip or non-commercial permit is that everybody shares in the cost equally. If some people go for free and other people pay, that's technically violating the non-commercial permit. And so it's a trip where the financial part isn't followed. And sometimes it's done as a commercial trip. Like somebody will come in, get a private permit, and secretly charge a bunch of people money and make money off of it. And sometimes it's just done like, hey, we don't have enough people rowing boats. Maybe we'll entice somebody to row a boat if we let them come for free. How's that?
That sounds great. Yeah. Steve, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, and I think that from the perspective that we're coming from, particularly Zach and I, being commercial outfitters and knowing the regulations and the requirements that are necessary to have a commercial permit and to run commercial trips and the costs associated with it, private trips probably push a few more buttons for us than they might for other people, but I think we would consider them to be bad, very bad.
So is it a pirate trip if I launch on the Grand Canyon without a permit and go down and just do a trip?
I think that's kind of what Sean's getting to with his comment here.
Yeah.
Either going on a trip without a permit or doing like the Yellowstone where nobody's allowed to do it, parts of the Yellowstone.
Or a stretch, you're allowed to do, but yeah.
I think for just the definition of things, I think we should consider pirate trips to be the pseudo commercial trips where a non-permitted person is charging someone to come. An illegal trip, like just jumping a permit or going where you shouldn't go. I think that's not what I would call a pirate trip personally.
Okay. So yeah, I think there's a lot. I actually wrote a whole article on this a few years ago. I don't know, Steve, did I ever send that to you? I wrote an article. You're on the picture actually. You gave me the photo that I have for my header on it for that article. But because I think a lot of people don't really understand the whole pirate trip thing, and they just assume it's like, oh, a commercial company that's running a trip on a river that they don't have they can't run it on. Like if Zach were to go run a Grand Canyon trip with his Northwest gear and get a bunch of people paid, that would be a pirate trip. And like Zach covered a lot, but I think the key part is to understand is that like if it's not directly shared cost, everyone can get in trouble. So if like the three of us are going to a trip and Steve's like, hey, Aaron and Zach, I got you guys covered. Don't worry about paying for it. That would be considered a pirate trip. Or Steve's like, oh, I'll pay an extra $100 more than you guys, and then that also could be considered a pirate trip.
Which is hard to do this, and it's hard to enforce it because what if like a parent pays for their kids?
That's fine. That's not a pirate trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think a pirate trip, there's one or two individuals who are capitalizing on it and making money off of the trip. I do think the gray area, and I think the place where you could, if you were in a situation where it was your Grand Canyon permit or your Middle Fork of the Salmon permit, you pull the permit, you're going to invite your friends, you're going to outfit you're going to bring a lot of the gear because you have a good kitchen setup, you have a good boat, you have an extra boat that someone else can row, you're going to provide a lot of the equipment. I think you can assign a monetary value to that.
Legally, you're not. Ethically, you're right.
Technically, you're not. I think the Forest Service might question that, but I don't think you're breaking any rules by doing that.
You are breaking rules by doing that.
My contribution, everybody's going to pay $1,000 to come on this trip. That's going to cover the food, the shuttle costs. I'm going to contribute $1,000 worth of labor organizing the trip, equipment, use wear and tear on my personal kitchen gear. That's going to be my share. I think that is I have no problem with people doing private trips under those circumstances. I don't consider that to be a pirate trip. If all of a sudden at the end of the trip, I'm taking home all the excess money and there's a couple $1,000s in there that I'm paying myself, renting my own gear to me, it probably there's a line that we all have to draw as to where that becomes unethical.
My understanding though, in every state's different, everything's different. Steve, is like if you are on the trip and renting your gear to the group in some way, that's not okay. Like it gets weird. You got to be really it's not like what you're saying, and I understand how you're saying it's ethical, but I don't think it's legal everywhere. I think there's certain places where you can't be renting your gear to other people on the trip. Like you can't be there on the trip bringing a boat and like rent. Like let's say you bring a cataract and then rent a cataract to Zach and I to use for the trip. That doesn't work. They don't like that because it's just too much of a slippery slope. It's supposed to be shared costs. So, I mean, and it gets messy because I agree with you. Like, oh, I'm bringing all the rafts, all the gear. You guys bring, but you bring the food or this or that. But when there starts to be money exchanging hands, not equally, I think that's where they have a lot of the problems. It seems like that's where the problems lie. So,
but how do they find? I mean, how do they know? How would the
I don't think they would know in general. But so what brought this up is I got asked to do this Grand Canyon trip for a group, and they said, oh, hey, you can come along. The cost is minimal for you. Transportation's basically covered. It's going to be a couple $100s per person because it's being subsidized by some grant. And I was like, well, I'm not paying my full share cost of the trip. So is that a pirate trip? And from what I'm looking, it sounds like it is, but I was kind of curious what you guys think about that.
I think we can make it more black and white, and we would encounter this situation once or twice a year. Zach probably encounters it once or twice a year now, where someone would call the ARDA office and say, hey, I just got a Grand Canyon permit. Or I just got a Middle Fork of the Salmon permit. Can I hire one of your guides to lead that trip? We need someone who's been down before. We want to be able to follow somebody. Can I hire one of your guides? Can we just pay a guide to go? Totally illegal. 100%. Guide would lose his guide license.
Yeah.
Can't do that. The private permit would not be considered a private trip. Again, we start to get into that gray area where, well, he's not going to have to pay for his food. We'll do it in an exchange like that. I think, yeah, you'd be still, in my mind, on the wrong side of that line. But if he brings his own boat, I think, again, that would be my fudge factor, the way I would get around it.
and it gets rented by the group. Like if he brings a boat and they pay him for the rental of the boat, you're saying
if you want to make some money on it, just say the boat.
Yeah, you can. They do that on purpose. That's why they say you can't do that.
I don't know the regulations on this.
Technically, you can't.
I don't know the regulations.
If they audited it, and you could prove that, hey, if I hadn't brought my boat, they would have had to go out and rent a boat. This is the cost of renting that boat. We're within the market value type things. I think you could probably justify it and get away with it. But I wouldn't have a problem with it if I heard of someone doing that. Like, to me, that's within the spirit of a private trip. The skills and the expertise and the safety factor and all the things that having an experienced person along on the trip, to me, are worth.
But I think that's the point. I mean, of a private trip is that people are supposed to have that experience.
Exactly. You're not supposed to pay someone to come in with that.
I mean, this is where the problem lies. Is like somebody's a boater, and they want to bring their like brother-in-law and his family, and like their friends aren't boaters. So somebody who's a boater gets a permit, and they want to bring their extended family and their friends. They don't have, but they can't take 8 of them by themselves, so they have to go find people to supplement. And I think that's where a lot of the problems come. And they have to basically like say, hey, people don't want to like, because at that point, the people come along are like guides, because the 8 people don't know how to set up a kitchen. They don't know how to set up a groover. They don't know how to camp. And the people that are going to come, it's not just a fun, like, hey, let's hang out and all do the work. It's like I need 5 people to do the work while 8 people just kind of like chill. I think that style of trip is where this comes up.
Okay, but let's leave the government out of it.
Before we go too far, you want to just read some regulations for Grand Canyon?
Do you want us to have you?
I have them right here.
Okay,
I have them. We can.
All right.
Do we want to read them? You can. If you share my screen, can everyone see my screen now?
I'll add it to the stream.
Can you guys see it now?
Yeah. Are you going to read these? Are you going to read these to us, or to read them on our own?
Well, can you see them on? I'll just say self-guided and not-for-profit. Non-commercial trips must be self-guided and may not hire guides, that's the classic one, right? Non-commercial.
But if you're not paying the guides, they're not hired.
Yeah, may not use any person or organization in any way to obtain a permit. Participating in advertising for profit will result in revocation of the permit. Okay, cool. We got that one. That one's pretty easy. Cost sharing and participatory nature. All non-commercial river trips must be participatory in nature. Trip preparation, cost, and conduct of the trip must be shared by all members of the group. This includes logistics, food purchase, equipment assembly, transportation, vehicle shuttles, food preparation, sanitation. Failure to comply will cause cancellation of the permit. Okay. And then
there's a lot of Grand Canyon trips where somebody gets a permit, invites their 6 family members who are not participatory, and they don't cancel those trips. So that's that does happen.
Yeah.
They do share the costs. I mean, they all pay the same amount probably, but there's 5 people there who are doing most of the work for the 8 people who don't know how to do the work.
Yeah. And so there's another part here and I'll bring up another page here in a second, but and then the last part is the no paid participation. Collecting a fee, monetary compensation payable to an individual group or organization for conducting, leading, or guiding non-commercial river trips is not allowed. The trip leader should delegate responsibility, financial and otherwise, for various aspects of the trip preparation and conduct. Trips may be considered non-commercial even though a member of the trip within their normal scope of employment receives a salary from an educational institution or nonprofit organization to participate in the trip, which I thought this was really interesting. I didn't know that this. Salary may not come directly from the fees contributed by the members of the party. No person may be hired or paid to participate in a trip under non-commercial permit system, which is interesting. So you could go on a private trip if you work for a nonprofit, you could go on the trip and be paid to be there, which is interesting. Or an education.
If you're paid by the nonprofit.
If you're paid by the nonprofit, you don't have to take vacation to go on the trip. You can be paid while you're out there doing that. You could be representing that organization out there, basically. Which I thought this is Grand Canyon, too. Just to be clear, this is Grand Canyon, and it
this
varies
is everywhere because the rules are probably different everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. This is just
these are pretty similar. This is how most nonprofit or non-commercial trips are defined.
Yeah, and then the key thing up here at the beginning in this beginning intro stuff: no trip member may be paid to participate on the trip, and no trip member may pay less than other participants as compensation for their skills.
I think that happens. I'm just guessing it happens a lot.
But
there's no way to find out. There's almost no way to figure that out.
Can we
leaving the Grand Canyon National Park Service out of it? The two of you, do you have a problem with a participant paying less in compensation for their skill? Paying less, not getting paid, but paying less.
I think ethically, I'd be okay with that. I'm not saying it's okay to do because I'm sure it's not, but I think that makes sense. I mean, here's a lot of
issues. Go ahead.
So, Aaron, here's the scenario. We'll make it black and white, even more black and white. I'm going to go down the Grand Canyon. I've got 9 family members with me. That's the whole trip. The 10 of us are going to go down the Grand Canyon. We decide that we put all the costs together. It's going to cost $10,000 for us to go down the Grand Canyon. We're taking my boat. We're using my truck. I'm going to lead the trip. I've got an extra boat I'm going to bring along. We're going to rent a couple of boats. Everything's going to cost $10,000. If each of my 9 family members pay $1,100 and I pay $100, that seems to me like a totally in my mind, that falls within the spirit of a non-commercial trip.
Oh, totally. I agree with you, but I'm just saying the regulations say different, and you just got to be careful and just understand that that's not the way it's done. And if you're doing that, don't advertise it.
Yeah, I think it's hard.
Just tell your family, hey, it's costing all of us $1,100, and just
first of all, we know. I want to be clear. That's not what you're proposing. Is not okay according to the rules.
Yeah,
we're just saying theoretically, do we think it should be okay? And theoretically, maybe we think it should be okay.
Yeah,
That's not okay. That's not by the rules. That's not okay. So people shouldn't do that because we said on the show like we think it's cool.
I know.
No, it's exactly. It's not.
You're not. Don't do that. Don't unless you want to control. But also the Park Service doesn't. They're not gonna know. Like they're not diving into the financial records. What they're worried about is when people show up to the put-in, and there's like for a private trip, and there's 18 Type 5 PFDs for commercial trips, and a boat that says some company name on the side. Like that's the stuff where like we got to dig deep into this. If it's like I'm just guessing, if it's a normal trip where there's just like normal people and maybe the money is a little funny, I don't think they're like doing an audit of the money. I think the real problem is the trips where there actually are people making money off of it, and somebody's driving their truck full of gear in and their boats and their stuff. And their family from Ohio flew in and they brought them in on a van to the put-in. The super obvious pirate trips, which are the things that happen.
And I would think, in my experience, over that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, far more common than today. Like I don't know that I've seen a pirate trip. Maybe they've gotten better at hiding it. But it used to be that I think I'd see one once a summer. Now I think I maybe see a suspicious one, once every 5 summers. Like I think that the amount of pirate boating has gone down. Hopefully. And I'm glad that it has, and I'm hoping that it's a result of the government paying a little more attention to it.
Well, yeah, and the consequences can be pretty severe. Like they can confiscate all your gear and just like it can be a mess. And like if you are a commercial guide like in Idaho will hammer you. And good luck getting to guide out there if that's your career.
Well, Oregon will too. Like it's part of the Oregon licensing.
No, so like that's what.
Yeah.
You lose your permit privileges.
Why I brought this up though is like when I got invited to go on that trip. Oh, you only have to pay $100. Cool, but is it worth the risk? Like the risk is very small, but if I were to get in trouble and is it worth to not be able to guide in Idaho ever again or whatever, or have to deal with a bunch of logistical BS and maybe not be able to guide and have to deal with this? It's like, no, it's not worth it. And I think there's a lot of people who watch this who are guides. And I just say, when people invite you along in those situations, think twice about it because there are some real major legal ramifications. And, like, on another page, like banking and stuff, it says all non-commercial trip expenses must be shared among all participants on a full cost-sharing basis. And so then when I read that, I was like, I don't want to go for the 100 because I'm not taking on my full cost of doing the trip. It's subsidized by some grant. And that to me said like, will I probably get in trouble? Probably not. Do I really think it's that bad of a thing? No. But I felt like it wasn't worth the risk. And I think that's the big thing that I wanted to talk about was that aspect is like, is it worth the risk for you being someone who's asked to go along one of these trips and they're giving you, oh, hey, you can pay less or do this and this and this. It's like, it gives me.
The risk is much bigger for somebody who makes a living as a guide than somebody who does not make a living as a guide. Because if you're on this trip, your risk is like probably a fine and they take your gear, right? That's the risk. Yeah. If you're a commercial guide, you could lose your ability to be a commercial guide pretty much everywhere. And so you could, you can probably start with the South Fork because I'm sure they're not checking it there, but you're not going to work a lot of places if you get caught doing this.
Hey, we haven't really gone through any comments, have we?
Yeah, let's get to comments. There's a lot of good comments. And I think we want to get to that in a sec. But the one thing I want to say is like the permit system that we have is what we have. And it doesn't handle everything perfectly. Yeah. So like if you're an experienced boater and you want to take your friends and family on a river that you love, it seems like there should be a way you could do that and hire some guides. Yeah. But there's really isn't unless you're willing to pay a ton of money to an outfitter. Like, so you could join a commercial trip where those guides like take care of your friends and family, but then you are potentially a liability for that commercial trip because you're rowing a boat, a person they don't know, and the matching it up is really hard, and you're not allowed to do a private trip. So a lot of people want to do that. Like they want to row their wife down a river they did 30 years ago. They want to do a private trip with their old friends, but there isn't a mechanism for doing that other than like the only way to do it was like, for me, if you want to do it in the Middle Fork, you have to buy the whole trip out, which is like $80,000, right? Which isn't really like, that's way too much money. So the permit system works really well for people. It's designed for commercial guides who are experienced to take people down the river that have little or no experience. And it's designed for groups of people who have experience to do their own trips. The gray areas, it doesn't really match their needs very well. And it is unfortunate. I can see the person like who wants to do that thing. There isn't an outlet for that, unfortunately. But it's a system that we have. And because a private trip and a commercial trip are such distinct things, I think the agencies have to put rules in effect that make it very clear what a private trip is. So when people start to move into the commercial side, they can say, no, it's a cost share trip. This is the rules you have to follow, so that they have an enforcement feature or like rules in place.
Zach, it's not that hard to find people. You know, I feel like more often the problem is like none of the people in your group are really good enough to do the trip. And you, like, we used to get down the Tuolumne. People like, hey man, will you show us the way down? We just need someone. We used to get a lot of that where you'd be the person. And like finding someone to row some family members down though, if you get a road permit or you get a Middle Fork permit, there's always people who want to go.
You can find, it depends on the river, not like every river. I mean, if it's really hard to get a permit, somebody for a Middle Fork permit will row 2 people they don't know down the river. Potentially. Totally. But if you bring 8 people, that's a little harder. Like I got a Middle Fork permit. Yeah. This is the call I get all the time. I got a Middle Fork permit for July 3rd. I want to hire 2, the one Steve's talking about. I want to hire 2 of your guides to show us down. I'm like, that what you want isn't available. The permit you got was a permit that allows you to go down the river with your own experienced group. It doesn't allow you to hire people from the outside. And so I think that's the tricky thing, is somebody who's always wanted to do the Middle Fork, but they can't afford a commercial Middle Fork trip, or they don't want that experience because it's, you know, there's guides that are telling you what to do. And some people don't want to be told what to do by guides. Like like if you go on a Middle Fork trip with me and you want to sit in the hot springs for all day, I'm going to say, no, we got to get to camp. Whereas if you're on your own private trip, you can, you know, do whatever you want. So I think part of this comes from the fact that the permit system, it's good, but it's not perfect. And there's not a good, perfect answer.
Yeah,
I agree.
There's a couple other, I'd say, reasons to pause before getting involved with something like this, a pirate trip. Is first of all, the liability stuff is really messy. Like, and particularly people think of you as a guide, and then people get hurt on the trip. Like, man, you're not in a good place there. You know, particularly if somehow you're getting paid to be there, or you're not paying your fair share and you're supposed to be the expert and something happens. Ugh, yuck. Like, I think that just gets incredibly messy. And maybe I'm missing something. What do you guys think?
No, I'm with you, Aaron. Yeah.
Okay.
Be careful. And in the end, it's probably not worth saving a couple $100.
Yeah. No, totally. Or making a couple $100, and then if you get her as a guide, I think about if I get her on the trip, I'm host. Like, you know, like particularly like the Tuolumne, which is when we're like, hey, you can get hurt out there. You know, it's like, okay, well, if I get hurt, workers' comp's not covering me, and I can't keep working. So
that's if you're going on the trip to make money.
Well,
are you if you're choosing to go on the private trip because it sounds fun to you, you're not going to worry about workers' comp and liability.
No, you're right.
But if you're going on a trip, you're like, oh man,
you're being paid to be there, Zach.
If you're being paid to be there, if you're not paying and you're being paid to be there, you're opening a whole bunch of can of worms. There's so many issues.
Don't go there.
If you're saying, hey, quietly, just give me $1,000, I'll row the boat, I'll lead the trip, give me $1,000, we'll pretend like it's for raft rental. That opens up a lot of liability issues, including like, you have to get hurt. What happens if you get hurt?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Is it just gets really messy fast, and and then something happens on the trip, and then they find out about it, and then you're like, oh great, Park Service is involved. They found out. They're starting to ask questions. Oh, or you get hurt. It's just like, awful.
So Noel has a question. I think Noel is admitting to doing a pirate trip. No, how dare you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but I think the other thing too is Noel is if it's an understood, like, hey, you're gonna give me a bottle of wine for doing this. That's one thing. If afterwards they say, hey, thanks for organizing all of this, really
that's
appreciate
a tip.
it.
Aaron, that's a tip.
Yeah, but I think
no, like, you're busted. I'm telling you.
If it's
leftover food from the trip.
Was it leftover food
compensation?
Trip?
I think
a nice
I agree
with
with Noel. If it's expected, I believe a lot of it's about expected compensation and something up front. Like, hey, you do this and we'll give you this. If afterwards they say, hey man, thanks so much, here, appreciate it, that's a different story. That's just a gift.
All right,
Noel.
We disagree with this one. Hey Noel, email me the river, the date, and your driver's license, and I'll report you. Should I cost been accused by it? Yeah, I mean, so I think that local river management, they do need to find part of their mandate is to like stop this kind of boating for a number of reasons, and the things they have to look at is like, is there some people wearing guy jackets and everybody else wearing like not guy jackets? Do the boats have company names on them? Are they? Is the vehicles? What's on the vehicles? And we're told when we have our commercial boats on the river for private trips, we have to cover the names. And so I think that you should cover the names of logos, or you're going to get people looking at you. That's a kind of a giveaway.
Yeah, totally.
What about someone trying to snag your camp in Middle Fork?
Is that a pirate ship? Arr. I've had my trip. We've had our camp taken before.
Different. Maybe that'll be one of the mental angle.
And unfortunately, at that point, Steve told us we were supposed to be the friendliest rafting company. Yep. So we just went downstream.
Wait, on the Middle Fork, somebody took your camp? And you had to keep going?
Another outfitter did because they missed their camp. And they just set up in our camp. We came down around the corner. They had already unloaded their stuff into people in our camp. Yeah.
Oh, that's messed up.
Yeah. And then they told us we could share or we could go downstream.
Did you know where you were going to go downstream? Did you? I mean, that's the problem is with assigned camping, you don't even know where to go.
And they told us, we're pretty sure this one's open.
Why didn't they just go to that one?
Well, because they had a sweep, and he was nervous about pulling the sweep in.
Oh, geez, don't get me started.
Sweeps.
Let's move on.
Those sweeps.
Let's move on. Aaron's definitions. I was as long nobody's profiting unequal shared costs. Yeah, that's why Aaron is providing this education.
Yeah, that's why we talk about it. Just because, everyone assumes if no one's profiting, it's fine. But no, if you're not paying your fair share, like Grand Canyon, it's considered a pirate trip. So. Whatever. Illegal.
Look at this one. This is interesting. I mean, if you are running a pirate trip and you properly tell everybody what to say, it's hard to get caught. What's going to be the problem is when somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, and I'm going to say, like,
wrong.
Yeah, and whatever, man. Those people are going to do that. They're going to do it, and like, yep. And I don't think it's worth the risk. And honestly, I mean, I think it's easier working. Like I've done just doing trips with my friends is super annoying. I'd way rather work a commercial trip than just take a bunch of random.
Aaron, down. if you let's say you're just some dude who owns a raft, and you're charging $100 a person, and you're making $500.
You're not charging $100 a person because they can do it cheaper than that. They want a deal. So they want like 40.
Whatever it is, you can make
good. The shuttle.
I think people do this because
they don't show up, and then only 3 of them show up, and then you're like, dude.
Obviously they're showing up, they're doing it, but like I'm gonna phrase it, you make a lot more money because all the overhead's gone, all the insurance is gone, all the fees are gone.
I just look at just in general. Regular private trips are hard enough to organize and have people commit and follow through on. I just think they're just like, I don't know.
How much is a guide making on the American these days? What's a guide making? Like, let's say they're doing a gorge. What's a gorge guide making?
And how many hours do they work in that day? And do they have to bring their own equipment? And then, they have to do everything themselves and organize the shuttles and
all right.
$120 a day, 8 hours.
8 hours. So you can easily make $300 if you're just doing pirate trips, and you don't have to like follow somebody else's rules.
I wouldn't say easily. I'd say you can, but not easily.
You can. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying like I think that's why they're doing it, but they don't have all the overhead and all the other stuff. Just no boat.
Yeah, Michael, that's a good question, and I get confused about that. I think it's fine. Like, oh, hey, person A is bringing a raft, person B is bringing a raft. Hey, I'm bringing a raft to bring. I think then that's fine. But I mean, this is just guessing on it. But it does get a little weird. No.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because you're showing up with gear. I'm bringing this gear. I'm bringing this gear. You know. But if I'm renting rafts for all three of us and bringing them, that gets a little bit like, yeah, you know, that seems a little shadier.
Aaron, we just did a trip with Roe, and one of the people they brought their own boat. Should they have to share in the cost of all the rented boats? The one person that brought their own boat?
Would say that again? What happened?
We just did a trip with Pro on the Grand Canyon, and one person brought their own boat. Should that one person? I think
it depends. Yeah, I'd say, yeah. No, I think you could itemize that out.
I think you itemize that in. You add
it's
the
not,
value of bringing your own boat compensates for not having to rent another boat. So $1,200 to rent a boat. I have a $1,200 contribution already added in. This isn't hard. This is a spreadsheet.
I don't think that's technically okay though.
I think
technically everything has to be. I think technically it has to be a shared cost. Like you can't.
And I'm going to rent my boat to the trip for $1,200.
I think theoretically that sounds.
Everybody on the trip is in agree. Yeah, we're going to rent Steve's boat for $1,200. Put it in the trip costs.
Steve, this is what it says. All non-commercial trip expenses must be shared among all the participants on a full cost-sharing basis.
Right. So the value of me bringing a boat is X. Add that to the costs.
What about the value of you being there and providing services?
Different. And I will.
What happens if your boat's way nicer than everyone else's boat?
What happens if what if it's a wing and it's like I'm gonna rent it for $12,000
and you're bringing
the kitchen, the trailer?
Those are all added into the trip costs and a negotiated price.
I think what you're saying here seems reasonable, like what a reasonable person would do. I think according to these rules, that's not acceptable.
You gotta be very
official
careful.
Rules. Yeah. That's not okay. What you're saying seems like a reasonable, smart thing to do. I think the rules say something different. I think the reason is because people do that. They go, "Oh, hey, I'll rent you guys my raft for $18,000," and that's how they make a profit.
And I'm not suggesting that. I think that would be outside of across the line.
So how much is what's the line? How much can somebody rent a raft for?
I think that's a pretty easy number to figure out. I mean, there are enough rental businesses out there that you can just say that's what the value of renting this boat is going to be.
Yeah.
So you use the number that the other boats are rented at as an equivalent for yours.
Yeah, and I think the government, even
they're not going to check like that. That's not going to.
And I just want to be clear before we go any further. We don't know the actual rules, and we're not lawyers, and we're not telling you what you can and can't do. We're just having a friendly discussion among friends about some things. Don't use this video as a source for what you actually do, because you can follow some of this advice and get in trouble.
But you're right, and I'm going to say I read all the rules. We read all the rules for Grand Canyon. There aren't very many. It's not very explicit. It's really vague.
According to those rules, can Steve rent his raft to the group?
I'm not sure. Well, not rent the raft, but maybe he's not renting more rafts. I would just look at that. It's like, I'm bringing a raft. You guys want to bring more rafts?
But it's the total trip cost have to be shared equally among the participants.
I know, yeah. But I think Steve's saying is like that's part of the trip cost.
What I'm really worried about
way to do it
is the Park Service is going to watch this video and say these guys are totally giving people bad info. They're misinterpreting what we wrote and what we intended.
So what happens if I own like 50 tents and I bring tents for the whole group? And
that starts getting like, hey, I'll go rent. Hey, I'll go down there. I'll bring all the gear that normally would cost $18,000, and I'll just collect $18,000.
It sounds like that. Yeah, it sounds like Grand Canyon shouldn't allow anyone to bring any of their own gear, and they should have to rent it all so it can all be rented evenly amongst all the people.
All or none. It could be all or none.
Cost sharing. Well, you still have the problem with the food because it's consumed.
The interesting thing about the Grand Canyon outfitted trips is they're making the money that the Grand Canyon, the Park Service doesn't want anyone on the private trip to make. They're profiting by renting the boats, but if you brought your own boat, you're not allowed to profit from that. I think if someone wanted to,
it's because you're on the trip. Because you're on the trip.
If you're not on the trip, you can rent it to them.
I know, but
the thing is, they don't want people on the trip to they want everybody to share the costs. And as soon as you allow somebody to rent a kitchen box, it's really hard to enforce that.
So don't talk a lot about it around the park rangers, whatever you're doing, if you decide not to follow the rules explicitly. So what do you think about Willie? What do you think about Willie Bum Bum's comment here?
I'm
gonna say
I have no idea to know. I have no way to corroborate whether this is true.
I'm gonna say this though: you're only allowed to do one private Grand Canyon trip per year. So if they are bringing in pirate guides, the pirate guide can only do that one trip that year.
Calendar year,
yep.
Yeah, but you can make a lot of money doing them. I mean, you can make a year's worth of money doing it.
A year's worth of money
if you charge enough, and you live Aaron Cavaniello style.
No, people are just wanting to deal though. You're not gonna.
You can find some.
Curious.
You can find some wealthy guy in New York who wants to do a Grand Canyon trip. Like, hey, dude, I got you. Just pay me like $80,000. I'll take you and your friends. Like, if you have the right clientele, you could be like a company that runs internationally, trips all over the world, and just come over to the U.S. and bust out a quick Grand Canyon pirate trip.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, Willie Bum Bum. I'd be surprised that the rental companies would do that, because if they got caught in a pirate trip, all that gear would be confiscated. And it doesn't seem worth their risk to even get involved with that. That would seem.
I bet you that the rental companies have an agreement. Like the people, you sign an agreement with the rental company, say, hey, if you're doing a pirate trip, you can't do a pirate trip. And if you are, you're paying for all my equipment that's being confiscated. So I bet there's something in the
that's true too.
They probably would cover themselves for that. I think there's the ethical lines that we all have to draw. I think there's the Park Service lines we all have to draw. But if something goes wrong, if you run a pirate trip and something goes wrong, you're going to jail. You could very, very likely go to jail, lose your equipment, lose your chance to get a permit. You can be sued, held liable. You have no insurance.
Why would you go to jail?
Yeah.
What negligence?
Yes,
misrepresentation, fraud, all those things that could be criminal offenses, or you certainly could find yourself in a pretty unfortunate, ugly legal situation. That should be enough of a deterrent, the biggest deterrent.
Steve is right. Like in Idaho, you can go to jail for 6 to 12 months for illegal outfitting. Like it's in that blog post I wrote. Like,
the Grand is the Grand. So
punishment
just for
legal first offense. Okay, we're talking. This is the. I think
you're gonna share your blog post
where you get caught running an illegal trip. But criminal charges may vary between a Class A, just below a felony, or Class B misdemeanor. Either means a permanent record that could affect future employment. Punishment for a first offense can be a fine of $1,000 to $10,000. In addition, 6 to 12 months in jail is possible. There's mandatory appearance in front of a federal judge, which also means lawyer costs. In Idaho, one is also culpable for all the investigative fees by the enforcing agency, including mileage and work time. This is another $10,000 to $20,000. And your gear is going to be confiscated while the whole thing's going on.
I think there's two different types of pirate trips here. There's the one where like a guide, like 3 or 4 guides bring 20 people, whatever it is, and run a commercial trip on a non-commercial permit. I think there's that kind that is the one that gets hammered like that. And then there's the one where like they needed one more guide, like, hey, I'll pay you $1,000 if you row a Grand Canyon trip for us. Where it's like, all right, cool. And there's like this like secret backdoor $1,000 happening, and one person is just like a paid guide on the trip. I think there's two different, or even like, hey, you can go for free. Everybody else is paying. So I think those are two totally different things. Like if you're in Idaho and you're not, let's say somebody pays you $500 to row one boat on the Middle Fork just to like help, they're probably not going to come down like that. And they're not probably not, I mean, they may not find out.
But Zach, let's say I bring you along on a Middle Fork trip. Be like, hey, Zach, can you come along? Do that under the table, blah blah blah, and just like, hey, everyone, this is Zach. He's helping us out. He's a pro guide, and like, yeah, they're like, oh, Zach, I hope you're not having to pay for this. No, he's got us covered. And then you flip and swim Steve, and Steve breaks his arm, and he's like, I was with the pro guide, and he was drinking beers, and he flipped, and like,
well, don't drink beers when you're doing this.
Well, fine, you didn't drink beers. Fine, you didn't drink beers. You flipped in some rap, and he broke his arm, and you get a suit, and then all of a sudden, then there's legal stuff, and then
that's messy. That's messy.
But then also the feds come and say, hey, what was going on here?
Okay.
Oh, this guy was paid. Oh, you could face the 6 months to 12 months. I mean, that's what I mean. I like once things get out of it, they're like, oh, well, we got to do something about this now because we're here,
Okay. So, I see that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you in general. It's not that big of a deal, but I think you could end up there.
Let's keep going with the comments. Day trips not requiring permits. If the river is on public lands or permits required, that's what matters. So like the Hood River in my backyard, it's all private land. You can charge money and run trips there all you want. The South Fork of the American, is that county land? I don't even know who manages the South Fork.
It's a mix.
It's private land, but there's an agency who's responsible. Then it matters. But if it's, or if it's on Forest Service or BLM land, of course it matters. But if it's, just a river and nobody has a reason to manage it, then it doesn't matter. But again, if you went on the Hood and ran a trip and somebody got hurt, you're liable for a lot. And so, like when I go run trips in the Hood, we have liability insurance that covers that. If you could lose everything if you made a big mistake. Hopefully that answers the question. And without boats. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think a spreadsheet is the key here. Hearts, 3 of spades, a 7 class. Yeah, that is we should I do card tricks? I got my cards right here.
Where'd you get this? What? No, Digger, no. Can we move on?
Don't prompt.
I believe it's fairly legal to be credit for a boat or look another way for a boat and passenger. It sounds fair. I don't think it's legal.
I bet it varies state to state, situation to situation.
According to what I read,
I'm guessing this question has already been answered.
Yeah.
By who?
Precedent has been set. People have been allowed to credit or not allowed to credit. Like this isn't the first time this has ever been discussed. Every private trip that went down the Middle Fork of the Salmon last year had to deal with this issue. But
they're never getting like caught for this. Like this probably happens happens all the time. But the Forest Service, this isn't a major thorn on the Forest Service side where they're going to deal with this. The Forest Service may know what's happening. The Grand Canyon may know what's happening. There's that's not really what we're trying to crack down on. Let's not harass them about it. So I'm guessing they maybe let some of this stuff go. But by the rules, it's not okay.
Why don't we task Aaron with contacting the Park Service in the Grand Canyon and asking them if it's okay?
I second that.
Thank you, Aaron. Then we can move on. Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Thank you, Sword Digger. No member may pay in less comparison skills. One thing. What about paying less because they're approving? It feels fine. I'm just saying it's probably not. Paying less for skill is dicey, and the goal of charging skill should be licensed. Yeah, okay. I'm with you. It's better to laws.
This is where I agree.
Yep. Have to be rented. No. The cost should apply to people using that gear. The person does not bring. See, I think this sounds like a fair, reasonable thing to do. I just don't think the rules say that.
Mm-hmm.
If I need experience rodeo my friends on the river, I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah.
Well, which means you have to pay. They'll do whatever it takes. You'll pay them.
Yeah.
Make new friends.
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
Does California? The answer is no, right?
Outfitters have to be licensed.
Yes. Guides, no.
There's outfitter licensing in California?
Well, you have to have a permit, I guess. Permit outfitting
Well, there's a Forest Service BLM permit, but is there like a state license?
No, you're right. California doesn't require guides or outfitters to be licensed.
Like in Oregon, it's the Oregon State Marine Board. Idaho
It's not
Guide Licensing Board.
The state of California does on the South Fork of the American, the Middle Fork of the American. You have to have a permit. You have to have a license to run Middle Fork or South Fork of the American trip, North Fork of the American trip. Rivers where the state parks is the lead agency. So California does regulate outfitters. Licensed is sort of
on those 2 rivers.
3 rivers, he said.
But what if you're on the Kuya, or what if you're on a river that's not those 3 rivers? You don't have to have that license.
California wouldn't be involved. The state of California.
Okay. The state of California, but within California, you still have to
within California. Yeah, there's a lot.
It's not like Idaho. Not like Idaho. Yeah.
We go back to this one. If you ran a commercial trip on the Hood River, which I didn't bring this up, you have to be licensed by the Oregon State Marine Board. So if you run a not private trip, you do have to be licensed by the Oregon State Marine Board, which does require you to have insurance. So you couldn't just do a trip according to the state of Oregon laws. I forgot to bring that up. Okay, this is exactly everybody never dog to get permit for permits. Yeah,
I know, absolutely.
But
I think that's one of the reasons why they should have these stricter rules, because if they're looser, then you're going to get more and more of this, and it's going to be even harder to get private permits.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
the pirate trips, well, I don't think it's a huge number of people applying for them, but they are impacting permits for the people who want to do a legitimate private trip.
But what's happening now is like there's way more permit applications because people are now
I understand.
Find a huge group of friends.
Yep.
This got me thinking about something else, but I forgot what it was.
Well, why don't we go on to the next comment, and then maybe you'll remember.
Oh yeah. So I mean, Noel is a friend of Aaron and I from college, and so Noel has been booking us as an outfitter, the same way, like having a bunch of.
And I would say it's easier on you, man. It's way less of a headache.
We hear that.
You don't have to deal with all the BS. The people cancel. It's just like throw that all on Zach and his team or whoever. It's just like, yeah, that's exactly. Oh, I want to take me. Can you give me a deal? Take me rafting. I'm like,
I mean, here's the tricky thing because we get this call a lot. Like, hey, I want to come and row my own boat and have my wife in it, and then also my 10 friends coming. And that's where it's hard because people that want to row their own boat, they don't always have the skill that they think that they have. And so we have to, first of all, make sure that person has a skill. But also, if you're going to row a boat with your wife in it, you're technically a guide at that point. And so if you come on a commercial trip, even if you're an experienced boater, you're viewed as a commercial passenger who we have a responsibility for. We have to make sure you're safe. And so, and you can't take responsibility for the people. So the tricky thing is like Noel's super chill. He just comes and has fun. But some people have to row their own boat with their friends and family in it. That's where it's tough because according to the rules, you have to be a guide to row boat people in it. So we have a lot of rules on our side.
You don't have to be a guide to take a 2-person inflatable kayak down.
I know.
No.
Do you have to be a guy to take an R2 down? Yeah. What's the definition? What are the rules? Where's it change? What's the difference?
Gray area.
Yeah, it's great, but it's a raft.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Cataract?
Sure, I wouldn't allow that. I mean, we have to interpret the rules the way we interpret it. So some outfitters are like, oh yeah, just take your wife and you'll be fine. The way I interpret it is like in that role, you're a guide. And so if you make a mistake and your wife gets hurt, like I'm responsible because I put you in that boat in a role as a guide. It gets super tricky. Aaron's house. In Aaron's scenario, the guide could house. Do you guys understand this?
The guide could
lose. Maybe.
Yeah.
Everything in life. Yep, exactly. Like you can just it gets messy fast. Like let's say
one of the guys was a guide for the border crossing who stopped from British Columbia. Did a Norfolk. One of the guys that was with us, we were stopped and we had to prove to Border Patrol that it was really. That's interesting. Wow.
Coming into the U.S. Well, that's because Canada is so strict with us going up there to try to remember us. They're brutal. Yeah, we get people turned away. I went a trip for going to BC and someone got turned away at the border because whatever they did something when they were like 17 and had a record from it. 90, 100.
Remember that? I can't remember what that's about. I mean, this is the problem I mentioned earlier. Like the way the permit system set up really well. It's set up really well if everybody is experienced and is running a trip as experienced friends, and it's really well if people aren't experienced and they just want to be guided by experienced people and an outfitter. The in between there's not a good answer, and the permit system doesn't deal as well. One way people have said we should do permits going forward, or this is actually like a long time ago in the 70s. People said, I shouldn't bring this up, Steve.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
But it is scary.
It's controversial. It's scary as an outfitter because it would put us out of business. But where like permits are available for everybody, and then you get a permit, and then you either find a guy to go on your own. And so like with that system, where like the individual gets the permit, then they decide whether they want to hire an outfitter or not. The problem with that plan is like outfitters wouldn't be able to stay in business because because you wouldn't know if you have anybody.
Look at Pro.
They're providing gear. The difference is
but they're providing the same thing. I mean, they got employees that work for them that have to manage all the gear. They've got all the same issues.
That would work on the Grand Canyon a little bit, but like you wouldn't know how many trips you had, and you couldn't. If people picked July 3rd and you had a July 5th, you wouldn't have two crews to run it. And then the following week, you might have no crews.
Yeah, you're right.
It would be really hard to have outfitting businesses exist. And the general public doesn't know how to call and get a permit. They know how to call a business and sign up for a trip. But they wouldn't know I have to by January 31st, I have to do this like lottery system that's super messy. So
I think we'll figure it out to go hike the wave in Utah, Zach. They'll figure it out.
Not with a guide. Like people that need hire guides call the guide. They don't go through some third-party system. So there would be
sure the state would license guides, and they say these are the licensed guides you can use, just like hunting guides or anything else.
Yeah, it wouldn't. Being an outfitter wouldn't work. It would be too unpredictable.
And in the end, I think far fewer people would go down the river because. Yeah. If I got my private permit, I'm not going to have 20 people. I'm not going to be able to come up with 20 people that want to go with me on this trip. And so I'm going to just take my permit and go with 6 people. If I hire a guide or I don't hire a guide, that's a permit with only 6 people on it, as opposed to a 20-person commercial trip where we're consolidating people around a specific date and under one permit.
If you called me and said, hey, I got a permit, I want to take my 6 people on the Middle Fork, I'd be like, awesome. That'll be $32,000. Whereas when I can bring 4 or 5 families together, I can spread that cost out because there's like a big amount just to get on the river for us to like drive the gear to put in and do all the stuff. So like the cost per person is way lower because I can consolidate people.
I think M. Silva has a good question. And it's one that came up on the rowing schools a lot, Zach, and one that I added to the mental angle list.
Hey, can I show the intro for the mental angle thing again?
No, don't. It's
only 18 seconds.
Can I talk?
It's time for the mental angle featuring Steve Welch. In this segment, Steve helps us approach the mental game of guiding, trip leading, and running whitewater. Let's all give Steve a big welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. How to find and vet people that you want to go on a river trip with. Came up a lot on the rowing schools. Like, hey, I've got these skills now. I want to go. I don't want to go by myself, so I need to bring someone with me, or I want to bring other people. I need to have some help to do that. How do you go about finding them? we have to solve that problem. I think solving that problem would be very helpful. There are groups, right? Facebook groups and whatnot, where you can sort of mingle, but then how to vet those people before you embark on a 4-day Rogue River trip to make sure that you're not getting into a situation that becomes uncomfortable. That'll be something we can work on. What types of questions to ask?
It's finding boating groups if you don't already have one, or finding fellow boaters. It's hard. It's really hard.
But it shouldn't be. Right?
I mean, it just is what it is. Like, when I was boating a lot in college, I had a boating crew and we had plenty of people. I think as you get older, like, your friends start doing other things and you don't have that like same group friend. You have to find new people to boat with. And I think you either do or you don't. Like, I don't think you should be able to find people to boat with. I don't think it should be an automatic, because like you're looking for people who have the same safety ideas that you have the same political views that you have the same goals in a trip that you have. It's hard to find. And then you have to not be weird on your own. Like, you show up and maybe like I'm the weird one.
Absolutely.
So finding those groups is, I almost think the way it works, and this might be, you might totally disagree with it, which is fine. You should. You find the people first, and then you go boating with them. You don't go, let's go boating now, let's find the people. Because these trips are about the people. The people around you make or break the trip. And so, like, I think if you're individually motivated to do trips but don't have a boating crew, it's hard. I don't know if there's an easy solution.
You got to develop one somehow. You got to find people who are into it. I think there's a couple of ways. I think you take friends and someone's into it. Say, hey, you want to come again? Let's get in. And hey, why don't you borrow my raft? Come along, and you get people built up. That's one way, and then you find them. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. It can be hard for sure.
Again, because you have to find people that are similar to you, but also, like, I'm a punctual person. If I'm going to boat with people that are late, I'm just going to be annoyed. And so, when I go find boating friends, I might find them, and then like 2 trips in, I'm like, oh, this person likes Husqvarna chainsaws. I can't deal with them. Like people that have,
you probably wouldn't want to vote with Steve or I either, routinely. Yeah.
I would want to boat with you guys, but I'm just saying it's really hard. And I had this conversation all the time in our classes, and I'm like, I don't know how you can find friends. Like, we provide some ways that other people can meet people in our classes to go boating, but you can't just, the boating community is so small that you have to either be very chill and be able to be cool with everybody, or too particular.
Yeah, I like Brantley, who took actually courses from Arda and from you, Zach. Mm-hmm. She lives here in Hawaii, and this friend of mine, and she got invited on one trip, and everyone liked her, so she keeps getting invited on trips.
Well, Brantley's super cool and easygoing.
Well, that's how life works, man. If you're hanging out at home alone in general, yeah, you're not going to have an easier time on the river. It's the same thing. It's a little easier sometimes just because you want to go boat and want something to paddle with. So let's this. I mean, this is we're getting a little bit too much into this deep.
Yeah. But before can we wrap this up by saying that maybe you guys can make it a purpose of your show to make it a little bit easier somehow? Like, we're not going to solve this problem, but
the purpose of our show is to help people make friends.
We can do something to make it easier.
Yeah, teach people how to make friends. Yeah, I don't think we're good at that. I think we're the opposite because we're so confrontational.
Right. No, I think. Hold on. I think there's a lot of purposes of the show, and one of them, the big thing, is to provide some entertainment and like a little bit of education on stuff, and have discussions and share things. I think by talking about this, this is a topic that comes every so often.
Yeah,
we give people food for thought. We give people like, hey, maybe I should be less annoying. Maybe I should be
Show
on
up
time.
on time. Have your gear together. Don't ask people to wait.
We did a whole live show about this one, Steve. How to make friends.
Good. Yeah.
And it's a good thing to repeat and come back to. And definitely, like, when you get that opportunity, and if you don't have a lot of boating friends, be a little bit on the quiet side.
I mean, there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's nudity, there's just so many things.
Yeah, you got to bring their alcohol. You got to be willing to get nude.
There's just finding a group is, I think, really hard, personally. But,
it is. But let's get going back to the last one though for a second.
Sorry. That's Aaron's job. Aaron's going to do that for us.
I'm going to say this on this, John. So we can reach out to him, but the problem is you're going to talk to someone in the office, and they don't know. They're interpreting it the way we're interpreting it. It's what lawyers interpret and judges interpret is really that matters. And so, like, we can talk to them about what they're looking for, and that might help some. But it just depends on it's like a cop pulls you over. It's like it depends on the cop, and they don't even all know the rules, and they don't even apply the rules properly all the time. So
Aaron's going to get to the bottom of this. It's going to be great. Next week,
I will ask questions, but I just want to
send an email, Aaron. Get it in writing. I guarantee you. I would bet you. I don't have anything to bet with right now. Mm-hmm. That if you sent them an email and laid out the scenario where you want to be compensated for providing your own equipment, that they will provide you with an answer that is already in form that says, this is how we deal with this. Yes, you can, or no, you can't. That it's already been decided. It was decided 10 years ago. They cut and paste that into everyone that asks the question. I
cannot wait to read this email next week. Aaron, thank you for doing that. Hey, if I should be factored in. I agree it should be, but I'm not sure.
I think we're all in agreement. Yeah.
I would never go to what's the word pedantic mean? Pedantic?
Anal.
Pedantic.
About cautionary rules. Yeah, I don't think I'd go on a trip with people that have a bigger vocabulary than me. That's pedantic. Do you guys really know what that means?
Yeah, it means fixated. Anal.
Yeah. Wait, you never go to people to follow the rules? See, this is where, like, I probably wouldn't go on a trip with Todd then, because I want to be on a trip with people.
You're not going on one.
That's Zach's gonna have his little calculator with them the whole time, recording every single thing.
One less friend that I potentially have to boat with.
Your gas.
I'm going to keep doing private trips, so we do it. Insurance costs, feels fair, some really generous rounding.
No, and I
really generous rounding, huh? You don't give the value to the gear you bring. You have to split the cost up. Everyone has to eat services. If you bring a boat, that's what I mean. Everybody's kind of agreeing with how you think.
Totally.
And Spirit seems good. I just don't think the rules say that. It's uncommon. I've never hired an unlicensed temporary guide.
That's interesting.
Never once. I would not believe that's common. Or maybe it is, but I've never hired an unlicensed.
Maybe we're talking day trips versus multi-day.
I think he's trying to say hard to prove. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something.
No. This one right here.
More than the trip expenses. Someone. Wow.
That's exactly.
Makes somebody mad.
That's exactly the answer. Someone goes on trip and not happy with their trip, not happy with what happened. They swam.
You wear your
butt on the rock.
Off.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, whatever. You make a joke they don't like. Yeah. You say you make the wrong joke and they don't like you and they're upset.
Change. We have to change our business, but I think, maybe. I don't know.
I'm gonna go back to the last one for a second, if you could, before we talk about this. One thing I wanted to say about this too is I think be really careful, and this is just for private trips in general. Is I invite Steve along, and then say he's like, "Hey, I've got this other friend I want to invite along." Like when you're bringing friends of friends on trips, you don't know who they are, you don't know how they are, and your friend likes them for whatever reason, but they're not thinking about it in the same context you are in terms of like what someone who's good on the river, particularly someone who hasn't spent a lot of time on the river. Like this person will be good on the river, but they have no idea what it takes. And like, this other person's fun. Oh, let's bring them. And like that's and I'll bet you on this one, the person who complained wasn't a good friend of your dad's. It was a friend of your dad's or something like that. You see that a lot. So yeah, sorry. Go
Problem with the permit system is way higher demand for private person and commercial. I don't think the odds are 400 to 1, Todd. I think last time I saw they were like 60 to 1. And I mean, commercial launches have empty space. Same thing with private permits. I see private permits all the time with like 4 people on it. So private trips aren't filling the same. So
yeah, that's an interesting point.
But it's not 400 to 1. I know that. It's more like 60. That's just job permits. Yeah, I mean that is a way to do it.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Everyone draws from the pool.
Yeah, it gets
wow.
There's a lot of you wouldn't have outfitting. Outfitting would fall apart.
Yeah, you could have outfitting.
Not really. It does. It's not the same thing. There's just when I think of a business like that, it just doesn't work at all.
If the outfitters had launches like they do now, you could, and you say like how many?
They wouldn't have launches. You would
year?
You would run trips based on when people get the permits.
No, I'm just saying. You draw.
If you drew the July 4th permit, you'd have to go with the outfitter that's running on July 4th.
No, you don't draw. You don't draw a date. You just draw. You go into the lottery to win a spot on the river that year.
Oh.
Private but wait, on a spot with a commercial outfitter or just anybody?
Anybody.
You choose up front maybe, and you say up front, I want to go commercial or private, and then you win the spot, and then it's like okay, and then they say okay, hey, commercials, this is how many people we have in the pool this year that want to do trips. Privates, this is how many people we have in the pool that want to do trips. I don't know how it would work, but
I mean they did this on the Deschutes. They changed the system and that's what the boater pass system is all about. And so now you have businesses. But this boater pass system is basically like, the same boater passes that are available to either commercial or private. And the commercial people know how to work the system. So they get all the boater passes, or they get most of the boater passes. So like if there's a system like where everybody has to go for the same permits, the commercial outfitters, if there's a business around it, they'll figure out how to like get most of the permits.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say this is, like, there's some great outfitters out there, but there's some crappy outfitters out there that shouldn't be in business. And I think the way the system is now is they get to stay in business even though they're junky. And the competition is minimalized the way it is right now.
But Aaron, there's not that many junky outfitters. There's not as many as I think you're portraying.
There used to be more. I agree.
Aaron, I think that there'd be more junky outfitters because what'll happen is if you get your date July 3rd and you're like, oh, the good outfitters are booked up already. There's only for that week, you have to, hey, who can get my family down the river? Like there's gonna be a bunch of people out there. The list will be long of who can do it but aren't the best. You're not picking the best company. You're picking a date. You're not picking like right now. People will call like the best company probably, and go with them. And we have a date. Come with us. Versus like then you're getting a date and you're getting whoever you get to run that trip. Now, let's move on. This topic's controversial.
It's upsetting you.
I think this is pretty good. No. I didn't come to this ready to have that whole discussion. And we're almost going on 2 hours. I think it's pretty common. Yeah, 7-person. It's a great time. Like a great number of people. And that's,
but that's it. Yeah, they're not getting used to
unused private space. I take people on rent trips. Yeah.
Totally agree, Jake.
That's a good point right there.
Yeah, no, on the Middle Fork, that's a good reminder. Like they say, hey, by the way, you all have to be here on a shared cost trip. I mean, that's the thing that does come up. I'm have to put in. Cool. Oh, good. We're making somebody laugh. Do you know what that means, Aaron?
No, what does that mean?
That's okay. You'll learn someday. Google it.
Even I know that.
Was that an L or an I?
LMAO.
In my amazing opinion,
no, that's an L. It's pretty funny.
In my.
Oh man. I mean, this is the key. This is the thing. Like the beauty of a private trip is like learning as friends. Aaron's Googling it. That's funny. You like learning together, improving, getting the skills, and then going and running these great trips.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I think it.
That progression's almost exactly our thing on boating to get our first uniform permit. Yeah.
Hmm.
And your last minute gearbox logistics not IDF legal. Don't have an Idaho. Yeah, they'd probably get you an Idaho license quickly, I imagine. I'm sure it feels like 400 to 1, but it's not. I mean, it probably feels like 1,000,000 to 1.
Yeah.
But yeah. The stats are public. Whoa, in 2020 it was 102 to 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, it was in the 60s. But 2021 was that was the COVID year. That was a pretty rough year. I bet that was a high year for sure.
Totally agree here, PT Wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it is. We talked about that before, how if they got rid of that, there'd be a lot more spots. Yeah.
Permit both guide and headstrong. Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Aaron, do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is either.
Do you know what that is, Steve? Even I know what this stuff is.
I don't think I know that one. Sorry.
He's gonna Google it.
Oh yeah, rolling on the floor.
Yeah, it's more stuff laughing, rolling on the floor, laughing. I'm gonna forget it though. So
good. We'll make fun of you another time.
I'm good for
That person's really rolling on the floor laughing because it's all caps, right?
Yeah, they're doing it really well with enthusiasm.
With loudly.
Is that what all caps means? They're yelling. Does that mean they're yelling
right?
at you? This seems like we're a bunch of boomers talking right now.
Yeah.
I think I know what that means. Oh, yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah, with the first COVID year is 2020. Yeah. 2021 was particularly brutal. It's historically like been 60-ish. And before it was in the 30s in the early 2000s, and it's been a 60 to 1 lately. Anyway. Guys, we should probably almost shut this episode down. We had a few other videos to watch, but I think we've almost gone 2 hours, so we might call it. Any last minute things you guys want to discuss?
Not at all.
What's that smug look for, Aaron?
This has been fun. Been interesting.
This has been fun.
Oh,
I think
we've been touching on
here.
some touchy spots.
Yeah, definitely touchy spots. That's a good point. I mean, if you pick July 3rd, it's going to be like 400 to 1. Probably. I bet like prime dates could be 400 to 1. Wait, I know them. I'm the one that knows them. That's Aaron doing fun and interesting things.
Like being on the river.
What's this?
Oh, Jaron, let's get a screenshot.
Come
on.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Jared. Yeah, make sure you get photo next time. Yeah, make sure you get photos.
Where was I?
I'm not surprised.
On August, that's pretty rare for me to get stuck there, Jaron. But thanks for pointing that out. Man, mental angle getting a shout out.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you. That helps.
Yeah, the mental angle.
Oh, here we go. Let's Jaron, dude. Send them in. Send them to Aaron at riversandoceans.com. We'd love we'll put them up. I'd actually love to see him. I'd love to see him. I'll come up with excuses for why that happened. It's pretty rare.
You
one and a half feet.
In your boat. Was there someone else in his boat? Did the swamper do a bad job?
Probably. That trip. Right. Did I just do the no? I just did the deadhead.
Oh, you were already making excuses.
No, it was on Boundary to Indian because I think I only did the deadhead on that trip. I know that trip. That's the trip where the fire started. I put in. Before I go, a couple things. One, I really want to in the future talk more about the canyon oarlocks, and I have a letter from. Have you seen this, Steve?
No.
These are the future. I'm just super convinced. My camera's never stuff. Bruce Helene sent a letter that went with this. That's pretty interesting. I want to talk about.
It's something about next week because that's a big conversation.
I want to talk about that next week. So that's on the thing. Send them to Aaron, AARON at riversandoceans.com. I did get a paddle boat stuck. That's for sure. And And I want to thank Johnny SR for sending Aaron and I the non-alcoholic beers. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for mine. Try to track that thing down.
Yep. Oh, and we had some questions that Heidi wanted us to answer. Aaron, did you want to bring up? So we'll do that on a Tuesday show.
Sounds good.
And I think that's all I had. Aaron, do you want to?
Wow, we've made progress. Oh man, I don't know if I want to go back and look at the original.
Oh, hey Jesse, that reminds me. But while I have you here, am I still gonna? You still want to race at the Wind Festival? You still gonna show up? Talked to Big Game last year. I'm ready to take you down. I've been training. All right. I should talk a little smack before I shut this thing down. Aaron, you got to do your closing.
Hey, if you haven't hit the like, subscribe, notification buttons, please do so because Zach really wants that 10,000 to feel good about himself. This is what he lives for: social media and all that stuff. Feel to brag to his friends. Like next Tuesday, we'll have a show. We've got a bunch of questions already, and then we'll be back on Friday as well. Is that right?
I'll be at Friday.
Right, sweet. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for all your comments as usual. It's it's fun being out here. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all those things.
Yes, Happy Holidays.
Aaron, I have a special treat for you.
All right.
Do you want to know what it is?